Welcome to the Wednesday workshop. And boy, I'm loud today, but it looks like we're on technology needs. Is that, am I interpreting that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we can hear it.
Yeah.
The technology needs.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the mic is working. Good. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director, and we are, budget workshop is for IT request today, and it's tab 15 of your workbook. And we don't have a tremendous amount, but we have a little spreadsheet to guide us through the actual request.
Is this first sheet cover? all
It's a
the
legal
other
size sheet.
sheets? Yeah,
Mhm.
it covers all these other sheets.
Yeah, and then the individual sheets behind it are the actual requests from the department. There's a form that they fill out. And then for the very last request, I attached the grant because it relates to a grant. And so I think they have more information. The department does on that. So this sheet is just to help us. I went over all of this with our IT director, Kim Hort. And we're trying to also identify those items that will end up on our IT service department so that we can set aside in the future funds through the IT service department for the replacement of those computers. So for example, the desktop or computers or departmental computers that are eligible for IT replacement have a little yes beside them. And so that's how we set aside funds through the IT service department. But in this particular request, several of these have special circumstances why they're requesting these. Because so, for example, the very first one, these were originally purchased, as I understand, by a state entity. And now they no longer are agreeing to replace those computers. So now it's on the county to replace those computers.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we work off of, now it doesn't work at all. We work off of technology, so there has to, I mean,
it's a necessary
it's
tool.
necessary. And my only question to you was, since we know these only have a shelf life of whatever it is, different places probably use different times. We always use 5 years, but I don't know if
Yeah.
that's correct, but
Yeah, here in the
but-
county, we use a 5-year
Yeah.
estimated life for this recycle and replacement.
yeah. It just seems it makes good sense. We know we got to do it and just set aside for it as it happens.
Yeah, as I've talked about these before, I have a little bit of heartburn over that, but I don't want to confuse things right now on that. Most of us in our personal life have machines that are much older than that. And that, because the tab is amorphous, if you will, it's easier to expect to have it changed. But I do have a pertinent question. How old are these machines that are to be replaced? Okay, there was, Kim could probably tell me, maybe 3 years ago, machines came in with hardware that couldn't handle Windows 11 and the new security aspects. So if we want to go up to Windows 11, we have to have new hardware. And that's something over which we have no control.
Yeah, that's what drove us a lot of times too, is no longer support.
Yeah. That's often with applications they typically supported operating systems for a long time, but the time period has shrunk as Microsoft stock has gone up.
Yeah, it's a sales tool, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're okay, we'll get started with the individual request. The first one is from the district court. I don't know why I have wrote district justice court. And so this is going to be a reoccurring theme because these are ones that were saying that the state had previously purchased the computers, but they're no longer replacing them at the end of their useful life. So.
That's right. I'm Molly Martin from District Court. We have more computers than are on this list that are up for replacement, but 15 of them, the price was reimbursed by AOC and they're no longer going to do
Oh,
that.
I
So,
see.
so that's why they're there showing as a new request.
Can you give us any hint as to the reason of their change in policy?
An email we received just said, unfortunately, it was not funded. And that's really all it said. It didn't give any further
Yeah.
reason.
So it wasn't anything you did that they caused them to be angry at you?
No, I think it's statewide. They're not
Yeah.
doing any replacement for court computers.
I'm only teasing there just because it is so difficult to manage a budget when the rules change on you
Right.
without any explanation.
And we got this letter, I believe, in August, so we didn't
Yeah.
get a whole lot of notice.
Yeah.
I think the list had a number of agencies and I think it was well over $5 million is what they showed they had allocated for this program and will no longer allocate.
Meanwhile, we know the budget surplus of the state is exceeding anything they've ever had before.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot of questions for it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's one of
Thank you.
those things you have and
The next one is for offender services. And this one, I believe that Maureen mentioned it in one of her business meeting briefings with you.
she talked a little bit about that updated ID method
Right.
for
That's what this one
Identifying-
is.
when and where inmates are at times in there.
And this is a system for the inmates and it's $51,311.
Is Marin on? Last time I asked that, she popped out of the audience.
I don't know if she had a conflict, but I had mentioned that she could be either on Zoom or you could be in person. But I know she had brought this up, that it's a system they would like to get. And she's already, from what I understand, she's already included it as an expenditure in her general fund submission.
Yeah. I believe that's when she was talking about it, when you were doing budget with that, she had mentioned it about this system and had it in her requests.
And I
Yeah.
think a lot of other jails have this and it's been successful in tracking the different services that the inmates receive. And it's similar to like when you're in the hospital with your wristband.
Yeah, I assume that the courts have looked at that. I'm a little sensitive to getting people tagged somehow without, but I guess when you're in jail, it's under the court order anyhow, so I'm looking at Judge Basher to nod. Yeah, and then always a pertinent question is, what are we buying here? Typically, you don't just buy something, then you've got maintenance on it, and then you've got possibly in this case a subscribership, and then sometimes you need extra machinery because of how the reporting or how the communications would be on that. So I just wanted to be sure that we understood what the full cost of the decision is.
I don't know, Kim, did you get any briefing from Marin about this? Because her actual request, it doesn't have a lot of information other than it's what type of system it is. I'm assuming it includes both hardware and software, because they have to create the wristbands.
Right, and then how many wristbands and longevity of the wristband, like how much will it cost us next year and the year after and
I don't have any of that information, but I can
Yeah.
after the fact get
It
it.
may be, I think it would be pertinent to ask because it may be so much for the system, and every time you issue a new wristband, you have this or you have that.
$150.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm opposed to that. I just would like to know going in.
Yeah, you mentioned, or I think she mentioned that this is used in other jails.
Mhm.
Does anybody here have any information on that regarding which jails or how many or anything like that? Because I think I agree with you if I understood what you said. I'm okay with this, like to understand more.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll get some more information. Okay, the next item on the list are two for the clerk's office and one, again, computers, 12 computers that were previously provided by the state and no longer. And then the second item is a new item, a public computer kiosk, second one. And Stacy's here.
Good afternoon, Stacy Michael, County Clerk. You've already heard the reason for the AOC computer replacements. In addition to district court, we also have more computers than what AOC allotted us, but those have been on the county dime for ever. So
Mhm.
we just need the 12, just 12.
Is there competition between you and district
No
court?
competition at all.
Again, that was a joke.
Unless it's between us and the administrative office of the courts for money, but. My other request is for an additional second public computer. We need a kiosk out in our lobby. We have all of our case files are on our computer system now, so our document management is all computerized. And the only way that people access it is through the public computer when they come to our office and they need to look at case files. So we have one currently. That computer is also being used for our online protection orders. So we have people that come in and request protection orders and they can actually go to a program on the computer and fill everything out. That takes a little bit of time to go through the whole questionnaire. So a lot of times that public computer is tied up.
That location is in the hallway that goes back towards courtroom number 7 or the
Yes.
former courtroom 7.
Correct. We are also looking at a new part of our jury program where we're going to be sending out our jury summons by e-response. So that's going to require a computer for people that don't have one at home that are going to need help or some type of assistance to come in and do it online. And having all of those programs done on one public computer, we're going to run into issues.
Is the use of it keep growing? I guess what I'm thinking, if you're putting more and more stuff that public self-service is, and I even hate to say this, is one more enough?
At this point, it is. We haven't gone with the e-response for the summons yet, so we're still in the process of that. We'll be able to judge later on once we do that, how many people are actually needing that. Most people have a smartphone or their computer at home that they'll be able to respond on, but we just want to have that as a backup.
They can use their own device if they
Absolutely, yeah.
can. Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
designed for that more convenience so that they're not filling something out, and mailing it in. They just log on to our system and answer all the questions there.
I have 2 questions, one for you and one would be for Kim, I would think. Are these, how well treated is that computer? I'm used to us having things in the public area being disrespected.
It's a little different where it's located now because it's right next to the courtrooms, and typically we have to have one of our staff members go out and log people on it. Times out after so long, it's not going to stay logged on forever. So we typically have to have somebody go out to assist them with logging on. And so we're well aware of who's using the public computer, and it's locked down. It only goes to those certain sites that are, required for use through our office.
Well, and that ties into I was gonna make it a question. We can discuss that another time. Just, I'm sure Kim has in mind computers that have access directly that people have direct physical access are a cybersecurity risk of some kind, and I'm sure they'll take precautions along those lines.
Yep, it's locked down.
Well, also, but my thumb drive that I plug in there, that kind of thing is like, I'm a devious guy.
They have no access to that. They
Okay,
basically have the screen and the keyboard.
thank you. That's what you meant by lockdown.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't come in holding a screwdriver because you got to go through the detectors.
Exactly.
Okay.
You could mess with this is a story, has nothing to do with this, but you mentioned thumb drive. If we put a thumb drive in any of our computers at work, where I used to work, all of a sudden a red flag comes up and IT will be talking with you real quick. So
Yeah.
Anything else?
So I like this.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and our last set of requests are from the Superior Court. And they have a desktop, I think, it's actually a laptop for the administrative deputy. And then they have replacement again of computers that were previously paid by the state and no longer for the judges. And then they also have a court security system that is partially paid by a grant. 60% of it is paid by a grant and 40% is match. So
The cost we see on that is
Oh.
the entire cost?
that
the
is
60?
the 195, 642 is the entire cost.
Okay, thank you. And then the cost for annual maintenance?
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, I would typically, in absence of anything specific, assume 15% of the purchase cost. That's kind of what you used in yeah.
Let me talk to that, Commissioners. Judge Basher, Superior Court presiding. Just a couple clarifications. The AOC computers, we get 5 from AOC. They've done that. They've replaced those. They've been doing that for at least 20 years that I've been involved in Superior Court. Due to the budget changes at the legislature, the legislature didn't fund AOC to do that, so AOC didn't fund us. So that's what that one is. And that's the same thing for all the other AOC computers. The administrative deputy, that should say administrative deputy laptop. That's actually a laptop for our one administrative deputy that we're still trying to fill at this point. They have a desktop computer. We also provide them with a laptop computer for 2 reasons. One is they attend meetings, they take minutes, different things where they're not at their desk. We also allow in certain circumstances for employees to work from home, depending upon circumstances. Could be project-based, could be family health or childcare based or something. So it gives us some flexibility there, but because of our reorganization, we ended up 1 laptop short of our staff.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, the laptop short. If 5 years from now you want to replace something, are you going to try and replace both the desktop and the laptop? Because I don't see that you need 2, but you have 1 already, I assume.
One goes different places. We may transition to that at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We work with IT on what their recommendations are. What this represents is a one-time cost at this point. There is a replacement, but that figures into our annual budget for IT, which I assume is going to increase because we're adding a computer.
I'm just trying to avoid the concept that I need 2 computers, my desktop because it's faster or bigger, something or other, and my laptop. And so typically, I think 1 computer per employee kind of thing.
That may work. I haven't talked with IT about that.
Yeah. I had Well, same as I have here. I had a laptop, then it plugged into a screen when I was at my desk. And when I was traveling branches, I just took it with me.
Yeah, part of our issue is that most of our judicial assistants, they need two fairly large screens to work simply because they've got the Odyssey program, which takes a full
Yeah.
screen to be able to use it. Plus all the, I mean, it's very difficult to work from home, be off of a laptop. So we still need a workstation set up, whether it uses the laptop for the CPU
Yeah.
or whether or not. Again, we can talk with IT about
Yeah.
that. Not opposed to that, that works. But
Yeah, I
this is
think,
where we're at this juncture. Again, this is, these costs that are in our cost per item, that is for this year. Going forward, that would roll into our annual IT budget. So they would be provided for as a replacement in the future. So that's what those numbers are. Questions on those, and then I'll talk about the security system.
On yeah, question for Kim. Currently, many of us have dual screens, right? Some even have triples.
It depends on what workstation. Yes, so you can have multiple monitors and we use docking stations. So you can bring
Yeah.
your laptop. And, we can also come up with where we provide two docking stations, one for at home where they have dual
That makes-
screens and maybe there's some more cost-effective solutions for that.
Yeah, we're not opposed to that. We just need to make sure they're functional.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because there is no intent, certainly on my part, to try and squeeze people down to a single screen like I have right here.
Yeah, I couldn't do my job with that. I can
would-
barely do it with two big ones, frankly.
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just from seeing all the information. So the last item is a court security system. And just to expand on this a little bit, I believe this may have come before the board at one point previously. It's cameras and locks and things for the Hall of Justice in general. We've got it in our budget. It actually benefits district court, the prosecutor's office, superior court clerk, everybody in the building, because this is perimeter cameras on the outside of the building, covering all the doors and parking lots, as well as upgraded locks that I believe have central programming capability. What we did is because there was not a lot of appetite apparently with the board to do this, we went to AOC. We talked them out of 100 and whatever 195 less 78 is. They gave us a grant for that amount. That's a reimbursement grant. That shows up in our budget. So it shows us actually asking a little bit more money in our overall budget for the year. If we don't have this approved, then that 195 would come out of our budget because we won't be getting the grant, because the grant is specifically for this purpose. So really the request to the board is to front the money of that 195 to get reimbursed. I think is 117, and I think that's the number. So the cost to the county would be approximately 78,000, that 40%.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the hall has I won't even get into the number of problems we have, but security is a significant one. We have no visibility as to who's coming up to the courthouse from, I don't think, any place on the outside. This would give us the south parking lot, the front, the north parking lot, plus at least some coverage on the back where there's an access door.
So where's that go? Can anybody be able to pull it up? I keep talking past experience, but that's what I know. We had, cameras at our branches, same type of thing.
Mhm.
And any of the execs could go in and pull up and see what was happening there. It just wasn't one monitor. So I guess
Right. I
if the
believe-
judge wants to hear something out, he wants to be able to see something, can he see it?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
configure the system with user access, kind of building off of your question about subscription costs. Typically, we buy the license for the camera use, and that's for the life of the camera. It's not an ongoing maintenance cost. Where we would see costs would be getting a centralized server to where we can manage all of the applications that manage the camera system and the door locks. The goal is to get it in one centralized area rather than having this key system for that building, a key system for that building, and a camera system for that building. And then to answer your question, what we do, for example, we have several access cameras, and like the elections department monitors theirs and has access to theirs. Whereas like the sheriff's office, monitors and the people at the metal detector monitor the Hall of Justice. So we can associate users to the camera that pertains to them.
Yeah,
So the answer is yes.
My
Okay.
assumption would be is that by the access controls, they could allow any particular individual access to any camera.
I didn't want to have you have to run down the hall, see what's going on.
Oh, no.
Outside, yeah.
Yeah,
What we're hoping is at least on a couple of the outside doors, particularly the north parking lot, is that there would be a monitor close to that door. So before you go out there at night and under that covered area where you can't see anything and people
You could
can't there,
see.
you actually take a look and see if there's anybody waiting for you.
Yeah.
So that would be a specific one for that, but so that's our request on that. One of the things on this one, we'd like to move that one forward as soon as possible, whether that needs to await for full budget approval or not. That's obviously up to you guys. We have a deadline under our contract to spend the money and provide all reimbursement requests. I believe it's July 15th.
That's like the final
where the
funding
final.
ends. Anything expensed by June 30th of next year is
Right,
their
so we have,
cutoff.
so we have to spend the money, acquire the items, pay for the items to get the reimbursement. So there is at least a timeline on that. So questions?
yeah, I'm on the same page on that in the sense is if you know you have a need, it's today and you can address it today. I don't like the bureaucracy saying don't do that because, well, anyhow. One comment, I think I have some of the history correct on this cybersecurity stuff. We formed a group maybe a couple of years ago. or
Security
more,
committee.
And I don't recall it ever coming before the board such that we said, no, we don't have appetite for that. But I think what we looked for was a proposal, which is I think what you have here.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then the other issue, there always the sort of ancillary costs. I remember the security cameras that look at the people coming in through the metal detectors were quite useful once when we were sued by a person suggesting that we caused her damage and collapsed her wheelchair, not a wheelchair.
Walker?
Thank you. So, and of course, the camera showed that in fact, it wasn't anything the person was claiming. So, just that alone, I'm just saying that because my question then ties into, I would like to see a succinct, isn't necessary, but appreciated statement under retention of the video.
Security footage retention.
Yeah, and you know, we really should start addressing those in keeping with the program.
I think that's a
And-
good idea.
Yeah,
And
And
we
then-
certainly can work with IT on setting up. I mean, that requires server space, obviously, for a certain amount of time.
well, except I would say it's IT is there to serve you. You'd say, I need retention, blah, de blah, and IT says, will do.
So currently we do have like a 30-day retention on videos because most of the time video is used for kind of proving accusations and such. But there are things like where we don't necessarily record all the time. So there's points in the, certain
Of course.
locations where we
course,
don't
yeah.
have retention or are recording. So
Right. And I think this is a specific proposal for perimeter cameras. It doesn't include a lot of internal that I don't believe. I could be incorrect on that.
So I think that there is more cost that we could invest into this project in the sense that this is not going to replace every door in the Hall of Justice. To be mindful of the funding and to be able to move forward with this opportunity. Our strategy is to work from the outside in. So starting with security on the perimeter and the base ground level, and then working our way into more critical
Yeah.
areas of concerns rather than trying to fix everything all at once.
I hate saying this, but there's nastiness out there now, so I'm not sure, 10 years ago, we might have said this was unnecessary precaution. I don't think that applies anymore. So maybe I watch too much television, but it seems like the cameras end up having some unintended uses as you look around, who's been scoping out the building, that kind of thing. And so I think retention is something requires the sheriff's office and the courts really to look at it and be very specific about that. And then the next thing is, yeah, I think before you walk out that dark door into the north parking lot, having a screen, that's kind of, in my book, important.
Well, one thing we're certainly, this is a specific proposal which may not include every feature we'd like. We got this much money from ALC, so we're kind of working backwards from that. I certainly would be more than happy to work with IT to look at additional that we could bring back as a secondary request, maybe a budget amendment if it's going to be additional. But if we get this so we can move this forward and then we can look at that as expanding it subject to board approval, we're certainly happy to do that.
Yeah, and then the other thing on the cybersecurity, which maybe follows, or I say court security, like what you were talking about, is if anybody really has an evil intent, it doesn't take much of a brain to realize I'm going to stand outside the garage door while a judge drives in, and I'm going to be inside in the shadow until everything settles down. And now I've got access, and I don't know how we cope with that, but I just throw it out as a consideration.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the specific security of the hall on a public meeting, frankly, but there's a lot of real security holes that are problematic. This just plugs some of them.
I sit properly admonished.
So, but I'm happy to discuss that offline, Council.
I'd be interested in seeing that, I think, to get you covered. If you wanted to take a look at what additional stuff, I'd be interested in seeing what that amounts to. I'm not saying we have the dollars to do it all, but it'd be interesting. I'd be okay seeing it.
Okay. Well, just quite, Kim, did this cover the drug court offices too?
It did include that. And then
Right.
there's a couple of spots like where 911 and DEM, the entry point there. So there's like some, again, ground level security needs. And then also like drug court, they had some concerns with their building security. Once we move forward, the next plan of action was to bring the company that did the walkthrough, they're on a state contract, to have them do a more thorough proposal to where we can like truly define, these are our concerns, and isolate them. We did a walkthrough back in March, I believe, of this year, and just to make sure we're on board and scoping the true business need for the courts.
Yeah, I think we have to be pretty careful there. In the past, I think some of the stuff I've seen in terms of contracts, like the audiovisual system in the courts before, it was done rather poorly, and we pay the consequences of that multiple times.
That was an ugly thing.
Yeah. And then the judge asked whether they could proceed and get approval for the basic system that they're looking at. I'm okay with that. I would ask, make sure you're not
Oh, yeah.
putting
to act-
yourself into a box.
To act now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm certainly okay with that. Yeah.
Well, if that's a thumbs up to start moving forward, we'll work with IT, move that process forward. And if it looks like there's additional that makes sense, we'll come back to you for further discussion.
Yeah, I look at that as it's kind of on your timetable and then the implementation and IT's timetable.
We can do that.
And the only other thing I would like to add is we have also included other judges. I apologize, I don't remember the name of the security committee for the courts.
Judge Jim Bowden.
Yes,
would be-
but the sheriff's office, facilities, and other parties have been apprised of this grant opportunity and are supportive of it, and we'll keep them in the loop.
So, okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
No.
Appreciate it.
I see Marin popped on. Can we ask her about that? Yeah.
Sure.
Hello, good afternoon, board. I'm off today and on the road, so my coverage might be a little iffy. What were the questions you had on my request?
We're kind of, we're echo here. But on the cost you had for that new ID system.
Mhm.
What are there? Does it have a maintenance feature to it? I mean, a lot of times these things will have that, and it's down to as simple as you use bands. Do you have every time you order bands? What's the fee for that? I don't know that we're not really opposed to it. You have an ID system, just trying to make sure we understand the whole gamut.
Sure. So we identified this particular company as just as a starting point to get a placeholder in for the funding. We will definitely go out to bid on it and look at that. They a yearly fee after the first year. So that price is for the first year. And then when we go out to bid, we will definitely weigh the options as far as what the ongoing maintenance costs will be year after year. There will be ongoing maintenance costs, but it will vary from vendor to vendor.
Yeah, I think the connection is bad enough that let's talk about it when you're back in the office at some point. I'm taking a look at what may look to us like, based on what you said, recurring costs of 50,000+ a year.
Yep, Marin, your total cost on this was $51,311. And is that an annual cost, or is that, like you said, the first year and then thereafter there's some type of maintenance cost, which we typically see about 15%.
I think she's trying to come in again.
Yeah, I think we.
Hello, I'm back and in better service. I had no service for a minute in the Centralia area. So I don't know how much you heard of what I said.
No, I don't think
we heard.
Yeah, the
question.
That's unfair.
That's unfair to me, you know.
Is that 50,000 or so? Is that something we can expect to see every year?
We just might have to when she's,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can defer letting her answer at the next business meeting.
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm having service issues.
Well, we're gonna
wait. Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that.
Okay, on the list, is there any that we can get your approval today so I can make sure it's included in the budget? So for example, the AOC computers.
I don't have any issues with any of the computers.
Okay,
Yeah, I think all of
Or
it is
the
okay.
securities. I really don't have an issue with Marin's request. I just would like to be clear as to what I'm okaying.
The only,
so we'll defer that one particular one. till-
I don't know what is fair. I think I mentioned, and I think the judge sort of gave a nod also, the prior to Kim being on board. So it's nothing to hang on her. The audio visual stuff was poorly handled. we paid a consultant and it was one of the first things I got involved with, and I was completely appalled at how sloppily that whole thing was done. And the only thing I'm concerned about here would be that the RFID thing, I don't want us to be painted into a corner, because not only do you pay the 51,000 and so forth, you got the policy manuals you got to work through, the training you got to work through and so forth. And to think you have to redo that every year because you didn't like the vendor.
Do you want to update on the AV?
Oh, not necessarily, no. I'm assuming it's okay, or the judge would have said something, but
Yeah, we actually received AOC funding last year through a grant to do an assessment and buy for the record servers for their court recordings. And we are still finalizing the professional service to design not only the courtrooms, but the general meeting room here and the commissioner hearing room. So we had a final second review of that last week, and we're waiting for the vendor to do some design proposals. So then if, we'll have some estimated dollar values to get the system.
good also. And I hope you get your own internal technical review board. I mean,
The team's been a part of that whole process along with the courts.
yeah, and your team is good enough at this point that every question should be answered at least to some significant satisfaction.
Okay,
So I think we're probably pretty good.
just get some further clarification about
Yeah,
ongoing costs.
Make sure it's what I could kind of get what she was saying. It sounds like that was a placeholder. And then if she basically they're asking if we're okay to do it, and then it would go out to bid, and then different vendors would put in proposals, and we get a chance to look at them and see what all the costs are.
And I would assume that IT would be involved in those conversations as well, to make sure that it requires, what type of IT support, things like that.
Well, even more than that, IT would have the kind of overall technology expertise, and we want to keep that.
And Marin's been really good about having her staff work with IT. We have a good relationship with the jail.
Yeah. So I think for this purpose, as a placeholder, I have no problem with it.
I have no
But,
problem
yeah,
as a placeholder. I mean,
Okay.
all that means to me is then later down the road, we're going to look at it, and if we like the technology, then we can activate it.
right, yeah. So in sum, I think all of these I'd expect to see in the 2024
Budget.
budget. Not sure what you do about the implications to the 2025, but I think a lot of these don't have a direct implication.
Yeah, I have to assume that for IT requests, we'll probably do this again when we update the 2025 budget, specifically on IT items.
I don't know if it's a good segue too. We're trying to kind of build our practice around the IT acquisition committee as well, and having departments put in these requests more frequently, so then we can assess and plan at least on a quarterly basis. So we're trying to, again, put our brains together to see how we can communicate and get everybody on board properly.
Yeah, and something like this too, I know we do it in part. I don't know if we do it adequately. You'll be a good judge there, but we suspect that we're going to have to replace these laptops in 5 years. So even though we may not be required to, I'd really like to have a fund that says at the end of 5 years, we can buy these without an event. So it's the depreciation you asked about.
Yeah,
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 and
exactly.
that's why we added that column that says IT service department applicable for future, so that we could build this into our models for replacement and set aside from the IT
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a question, I don't know the answer to this, but we have a choice where to think about these laptops or these computers belonging to the courts or belonging to IT. And so the question is, who's collecting, whose account has the amortization in there? Or is that the right word I should use?
Yeah, you could use it. Yeah, that's a good point. Whether you want to centralize it, it might make it a little easier if it was all in one. But
Yeah.
Well, that's the
gonna
goal.
leave that up.
Yeah,
to-
that's the goal. That's the goal for that IT service department, is to inventory and maintain an inventory of all of our computers, our desk stations and laptops included.
Currently we don't include things like kiosks, so like actual tablets into the cap. And then there's also software that we don't really throw into our asset management. So we're addressing those gaps and trying to kind of build beyond just a desktop and a laptop.
Okay, anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Nope, that's all I have today.
Okay,
Thank you, commissioners.
thank you guys as usual.
Do we have any previews for what's coming along for next week?
Next week, budget workshop will be our personnel request.
And we're doing that on Wednesday.
No, we're doing that actually on Tuesday. The 10th. Right, the 10th.
Yeah.
At the, I think at the.
In the afternoon, we have listed here, that's Habitat for Humanity and Budget Workshop.
Yes, and so on the 10th, we will be presenting our IT request right after, I believe, after the Habitat for Humanity. The personnel, I'm sorry, I said IT. No, I said IT, I'm sorry, I meant
Yeah.
personnel.
On the 10th, that's what the budget workshop is.
Yes,
Then the 18th, we have another one.
and then the 18th will be, the topics for that will be your equipment revolving reserve, the 5-year capital improvement plan, and the 6-year road plan.
Okay. Then on the 25th,
Is mental health tax
then well,
budget discussion.
And I'm thinking that Tuesday afternoon could be fairly late. I'm not sure this is a fair question to ask, but roughly speaking, I'm assuming most departments want more staff. Is there just a summed up number that says we're increasing staff by 100, by 10, by 50?
No, the list that I currently have, it's probably less than 20.
Somewhere between 15 and 20?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Those are always really hard.
well, yeah, it's difficult because I don't, at this point in time, know what the size of the pie is. You know, and if all that is going to fit in, and
Right. That's one of the things I want to try to change and adjust for the next budget that we go through. I really want to talk about the revenues first. What's available, what we're budgeting to be available, and then get into the discussion about the expenditures. So I can actually have a preliminary after, pretty much after some of these workshops, we can have a preliminary discussion about where we stand for those things that have been presented.
yeah, you know, and I think we may have talked about this a little bit. Personally, that's easier for me because I'm used to coming to agreement on what my budget is and then going with staff and this is what we have. Now, where do you want to put the needs or where do you see the needs? And you're working off of this figure, whatever that figure is. And we're kind of backwards. We're trying to go, and this is what we need. Now, how do we fit the figure around it? And to me, that's a little bit difficult, or that's a
Yeah.
little backwards.
Yeah, I'm not used to this either. I'm used to first talking about revenues, what new incremental revenue do we have? And then talking about prioritizing the list of requests against those new incremental revenues.
To fit within all that. Yeah.
In 24 and 25 budgets, are you including 1%? That we'll take the 1% increase on property tax?
I haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
We budget right now, we currently budgeted for property taxes. And that is budgeted in the treasurer's budget. And we budgeted pretty flat right now. Until we were a little bit further along, but I'm anticipating you are going to need available resources to help accommodate the things that we have in the budget and the various collective bargaining agreements that you have upcoming, because you have so many of them coming up.
Yeah.
I've never been able to reconcile the fact that where do we get the money? Because we are on a collision course, even if we wish to, and maybe we do, extract the 1% growth each year on property tax. Certainly, no one is going to look favorably on a 1% increase in their salary.
No.
And the cost of anything we do has gone up far higher than the 1%. So now it's, they don't meet.
Right.
Yeah. You got to continually look for efficiencies. Never ending process.
Well, I think it may have been you just mentioned that you were at least, we have to get used to doing something the government typically doesn't like to do, which is prioritize.
Yeah.
No, we can't do everything. So let's figure out what we really must do.
Okay. Thank you. We do have an executive session
Oh, we do?
today
Okay.
with potential litigation.
We do?
It's with,
Oh. Okay.
do you remember how long we set for that? Uh, 30. Okay, let's start with 15. Because I don't know where it's going to go, but we'll adjourn to that. Executive session, potential litigation, 15 minutes. Okay.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 2:45.
We're back from executive session. No decisions were made. Any further business for today?
I don't think so.
I don't think
Thank
so. We will adjourn. Thank you.